I am currently studying a dual degree in electrical engineering, computer science, and business administration at UC Berkeley in the Management, Entrepreneurship, and Technology program, which is a mouthful. But outside of school, I'm also currently researching and writing at a blockchain VC firm called Pantera Capital, and also leading operations at a diversity and blockchain nonprofit called She256. And last summer, I was a software engineer at, or intern at Facebook.
That sounds awesome. So what do you specifically do in Berkeley's MET program?
Yeah, so MET program is a dual degree program that basically allows me to graduate with both an engineering degree and a business degree, which is in two separate schools within the college. So it would be two separate degrees. And typically, if you're not in a simultaneous degree program, it's just harder to streamline your classes just because there's a lot of classes to take. So the program helps with doing that dual degree simultaneously.
Great. So how can someone apply for Berkeley's MET program?
Yeah, so as far as I know, I'm pretty sure it's only high school seniors who can apply for admission, but I'm not sure on that. I think they might have added options this year for continuing students at Berkeley to apply, but don't take my word on that. But so the way that most people apply is the way that they would apply to most colleges in the senior year of high school on the Berkeley application. When you apply for Berkeley and you select your major, there's this little part where you can select the MET program. And that's where you'll indicate your preference for the MET program. And then there's one extra essay to write, but it's not super different from the rest of Berkeley.
Cool. So what do you think helped you get into Berkeley MET? And are there any extracurricular or summer activities you think helped you stand out in the college app process?
Okay, I actually am not a big fan of the kind of questions where it's how, what can I do to get into XYZ program? Because I feel for me, okay, so it is an engineering and business program, but for me, I pretty much almost went to art school for 10 or I for 10 or so years I did art, and so I was pretty much decided that I wanted to go to art school in 10th, 11th grade. But I think so my interest in my extracurriculars in high school were I was editor-in-chief of my creative magazine in high school. I did Model UN and was interested in international affairs and more of the humanities things. Until I learned to code. And then I was okay, engineering is kind of cool. So I ended up doing a summer program at UPenn in the MNTSI summer program. That kind of really accelerated my engineering interest. So I knew then I kind of wanted to study the engineering side of things, but also I wanted to maintain the humanities, strategic, academic kind of perspective, which is why I decided a dual degree was really my fit. But that being said, going back to the question on what extracurriculars can I do, I always feel it's really hard to answer that question because everyone has a different path. And I know you probably hear this a lot, but there's genuinely no one solution or one magic formula to get into any school or get into a program. So long story short, I have a hard time answering that question.
Yeah,
I didn't have a specific, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Solani asked, what's the workload like and how did you find the time to do activities outside of your rigorous degree program?
Yeah, good question. So I think workload wise, I think for the dual degree, there definitely is a lot more work just because of the nature of the dual degree. You're taking 2 times the classes. So I definitely have a lot less flexibility in terms of my schedule and the kind of classes that I can take. But it's kind of it's a give and take between do you want the dual degree or do you want more flexibility in taking just cool, fun classes on campus? But I think workload is handleable. It's a lot, but it's manageable. And finding time to do activities outside of the rigorous degree program. I think the majority, almost all of my classmates in the MET cohort are doing other clubs with 15 to 20 hours a week of commitment or doing part-time internships and things like that. I think it really just comes down to prioritizing and time management and things like that. But it's 100% possible if you put your mind to it. So.
Totally. So Why did you choose Berkeley, and what do you think makes Berkeley's MET program stand out from a typical engineering program?
Yeah. I think when it comes to choosing a college, there are a lot of factors that come into play. For like, obviously, like, is the program, is a major like strong in the department that I'm applying for, but also a lot of other things that like you're gonna be in this college for, or if things come back from being remote to being in person, you're gonna be living in this college town, you're gonna be living on campus for 4 years of your life, which is, if you think about it, like pretty long, especially where we are at like our stages of life. And so like things for me, like I considered coming to Berkeley were included, I like weather, like political climate, like is this a community where I'll feel like I'll be happy and be able to thrive. But also just something that really helped me solidify my decision of choosing Berkeley as opposed to maybe another school was the entrepreneurship ecosystem and the tech ecosystem at Berkeley is like no other, in my opinion, like no other, compared to other colleges across the nation. And so that's something that really stood out to me in terms of the alumni network, in terms of the ecosystem and industry of like people that I'll be meeting and just like immersed with. And so I really wanted to choose a school that kind of had that environment for me.
Yeah, so going back to the college application process, do you have any advice for writing the UC PIQs?
The PIQs, is that like the personal the essays?
Yeah. Personal
Yeah.
questions, I think.
Okay. Essays are hard, but okay. I think the one thing that I want to say is that like think about being an admissions officer, right? Your full-time job from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day is to read essays from dozens of thousands of applicants. If you were an admissions officer, like I would want to read something that's interesting, read something that, like write something that you'd want to read if you were an admissions officer. And like people say this, but telling your story about showing, not telling, but I really think that is really important in terms of writing your essay and really getting your voice, which I know is also something that a lot of people say, getting that through in your essays, because it's your academics and your extracurricular list that will show that if you're qualified, and like the things that you've done, but it's your essays that give you a chance to express to the admissions officers if they'd like to advocate for you, if you're going to be a culture fit. Do you stand out from all the other applicants with similar stats and extracurriculars as you are? And I know, yeah, so if that answered your question at all, I know one of the questions that I saw earlier in the Q&A forum was like, is it better to be creative and unique but not as well put together, or basic but perfectly worded? And I think my answer to that would be yourself. Do something fun, do something creative, and tell your full story.
Awesome. So, do you have any tips for dividing the essay writing process or any recommendations to navigate through that section?
Yeah, oh my God. Like just in terms of all the essays that you have to write and organizing, or in terms of one specific college?
I guess in terms of like going from start to finish with your essays.
Yeah. Okay. So I applied to 15 to 20 schools, I think. I know I asked my friends, it like ranged between 10 to 20. If you think about all the essays that you have to write, I remember I was like, I have to write 40 essays. Like, are you kidding me? But what I think really helped me was I got like a spreadsheet together and I like put all my prompts on that spreadsheet and I was like, okay, which essays can I recycle for which prompts? Because there was no way in hell I was gonna write 40 essays. Um, so I think that would be something that's really important to do, especially like if you're early on in the process and you're still planning out your essays and planning out your colleges, would be really helpful to kind of pre-plan the essays, and so that you don't have to repeat work or you don't have to do additional work. I think the pre-planning will definitely pay off.
All right, so Rumesa said, did you apply to Berkeley as an in-state student?
Yeah, so I am from Southern California. I'm from the Bay Area and I've been here pretty much my whole life. So yeah, pretty in-state for me.
And Solani asks, do you have any advice for the MET essay?
The MET, I don't know if the prompt changes year to year. But I remember my year, it was something about, it was like basically like tell us why MET, why the dual degree, something like that. I don't think I have any like really specific like advice there that would differ from advice I'd give for essays. Obviously this essay is a lot more specific towards like why the dual degree. And you have to convince them like why the dual degree, like why do you want both the engineering and the business as opposed to just doing the engineering and maybe an MBA later on. Like I know a lot of people kind of apply just for the hype, just for the brand name, but they want to know like why are you willing to put in the effort to do 2 degrees, which is a lot of work, and why should we accept you for the dual degree? So if that's like one thing that I could say is to really just try to convince them that you want the dual degree as opposed to any other reason.
So do you have any tips for listing activities in the UC application?
In the activity section, right? That section was basically like almost a resume, right? So I'd have almost the same tips as I do for writing a resume, which are to use active voice, use strong verbs, and be really specific. So for example, instead of saying like, I was responsible for planning events, because I know you also have like a limited word count, what may be more powerful than saying like that would to use a more active voice, to use numbers, to use metrics, to use stats, and use like more active words to say like, maybe like, I led a team of 3 to organize 4 webinars with 300 plus total attendees, something like that. Where it's like, what did you do and what was your impact? I think, and also, you don't need to write your extracurricular activities in full sentences. You can use fragments. Like you don't need to say like I XYZ. You can just say XYZ.
Okay, so Solani asks, what are the advantages of doing a engineering/business dual degree versus doing an MBA after majoring in engineering?
Yeah, good question. I actually had to decide that too. I think the benefits of doing the engineering and business together is that you're getting that education at the same time, which means like if you're interested in things like product management, if you're interested in things that are very dual disciplinary, and if you're interested in entrepreneurship, that requires the engineering knowledge, but also the business like acumen, business like intuition. Doing the business and engineering together at the same time would be a lot more beneficial for kind of honing your intuition for both of these fields at the same time. Doing an MBA after is obviously a very popular path, and like a lot of people do choose that, but I think it's a little bit different.
All right, so do you have any tips on how someone can prepare for a college interview? And in your perspective, how much do these interviews really matter on your acceptance?
Yeah, okay. I think interviews are like a whole other conversation, but I think for a lot of high school seniors, their college interviews are like their first ever interviews. And so a lot of people get really stressed over interviews and like kind of going in very stiff. But I think at the end of the day, you should just be personable, and like it'll make you nervous, but at the end of the day, it's just a chat. They want to get to know you. So like go in like prepared obviously to tell to like talk about yourself and sell yourself and to prepare a few stories, but I wouldn't be too nervous about it. If you really did want to prep, things like Googling behavioral interview questions would be more than enough for you to prepare yourself on the questions that they might ask.
Great. So do you think there's any like most common mistake that people usually make on their college applications?
Most common mistake. That's a good question. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you because I only know the college application process for myself. I think if I were to do it again for myself, though, I would have taken a little bit more risk on my essays. I was very, I don't know, what would you call, I was very basic with my essays. I was like, didn't really go take any risks with my essays. But I think that would have definitely helped my application at some of the other schools, just in terms of standing out more as an applicant, just in terms of being more genuine with who I am and being a lot more confident in myself in the process, because things will work out. So yeah.
Awesome. So could you maybe elaborate on how you could or how someone else could stand out or become unique from such a competitive crowd?
Yeah, I feel like this kind of goes back to that first few questions that we asked about, like, what can I do to get into XYZ schools? And I think at the end of the day, my advice is to, like, not do things that you think admissions officers would like to see or want to see. Um, and instead give your fullest effort to pursue what is most exciting to you at that moment. And I think as long as you're putting in the effort and moving yourself forward, things will work themselves out, because your genuine interest and your genuine curiosity and your genuine passion will be more apparent in your application, as opposed to doing something that you think admissions officers want to see, um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you think maybe some of our juniors or underclassmen can start preparing for their college applications if they're wanting to maybe get into this program?
For sure. Let's see. I think there are a couple things, just in terms of doing the most, like growing the most that you can personally, which you'll eventually package up into an application. But I don't think the goal should be to, like, I don't think the goal should be to prepare yourself for an application per se, but to just do your best work and to try your best in your school, in, like, I guess, testing, in extracurriculars, and just doing what you want to do and putting, your fullest effort into what is most exciting to you at the moment. And then once things come closer to the application deadline, getting ready to package that all up. But while you're in your 10th, 9th, 11th, or whatever grade that you're in, I think it's just a really good chance for you to just do your best work, and don't really get too stressed about the actual application process until you get there.
All right, so Solani asks, how much do grades matter in college when it comes to getting internships?
In internships, okay. Depends on what industry you're interested in. In tech, not at all. Like, almost not at all. If you want to go into consulting or investment banking or finance, or maybe another sector that I'm less familiar with, probably more important. But if you're interested in computer science or software engineering, GPA is really not important. So I wouldn't stress too much about it at all. What's more important is your projects and your extracurriculars and the other lines on your resume, because your education and your GPA is literally like two words. So a lot of people in SWE and CS just straight up don't include their GPA on their resumes, and I don't either.
So someone else also asked, does it matter if taking dual enrollment courses from one university matters more than taking it from a different university?
I don't know. I don't I don't think I'm fully qualified to answer that question. I didn't really take dual enrollment classes in high school, so I'm not sure. Can tell you.
All right, no worries. So if any of our attendees have questions for Kristie, you can feel free to write them in the Zoom chat or also unmute yourself. Another question someone had was, how can they best thrive in an academically challenging environment?
Yeah, so I think In any academically challenging environment, it comes down to your priorities. And I think it comes down to like, I think things are a little bit different in high school than they are in college. I feel like in high school, the academics and grades might be more important just because college admissions are more holistic. When you get into college though, depending on the industry that you're in, I think it comes down to your priorities, like how important are grades for you? For me, my focus is more so on graduating and getting the degree, less so on the actual like getting straight A's and everything, and more so on doing things that I'm interested in with the blockchain stuff, with the venture capital stuff, and just kind of like spending time elsewhere that would be more beneficial for me, for my happiness and for my career. But obviously, I think within, okay, so I guess answering the question directly in terms of thriving within an academically challenging environment, office hours are always really important and helpful if for support with like hard classes. Making friends, I think, is maybe the top. Sorry. Okay, sorry, we're good. Making friends in your classes, I think especially would be really helpful to have buddies to do homework, to ask questions on during lecture, or really should just not go through school alone. It really helps to have friends to kind of help each other. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all my tips for surviving in academically challenging environments. But yeah.
Great. So Solani asks, how much do, or wait, we already did that question. How do you get involved in venture capital stuff in college? And is there a specific major / skills that people look for?
Yeah, good question. I'm curious, Solani, are you specifically interested in venture capital, or is that something that you are just kind of wanting to explore? I feel like my answer is kind of different for those two. Yes, I'm interested. Okay. Okay, I think when it comes to venture capital, a lot of people think you need a business degree to go into to go into VC, but in my experience in the VC realm, there are a lot of people who come from like sociology, there are people who come from engineering backgrounds, there are people who come from philosophy, there are people that really come from like all different backgrounds in terms of like academics for venture capital. So I don't think like the specific major is what matters the most. I think it also depends on what industry you're interested in for VC. If you're interested in consumer versus fintech versus like enterprise, that also just requires a different background. But getting involved with VC stuff in college. Okay, so for example, there at Berkeley, for example, there are a lot of different entrepreneurship resources and VC clubs on campus that you can get yourself plugged into. And different, like, oh, across the nation, there are student VC firms like Dorm Room Fund, Rough Draft Ventures, Contrary Capital. These are all student-run VCs that invest in student-run startups. And that these are opportunities that you can apply for to become venture partners as undergraduate students. That gives you like a very, very solid real world experience at investing in companies, doing due diligence, going through the whole process, and definitely very exciting place to be. So there's just a lot of different opportunities and people that you'll meet that will help you get into VC and get into entrepreneurship and startup space.
Awesome. So Rumesa asks, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to a high school sophomore or to your past self in 10th grade?
Okay. To my past self in 10th grade. I feel like there are a lot of things that I didn't do just because I was very much like, okay, I have to do these things to get into college, otherwise like it won't look good on my college application. And like there was just a lot of like stress and a lot of like anxiety surrounding college applications. For me, college apps kind of felt like the be all end all, kind of what my entire life was ramping up to, which is not true at all. And I think I had allowed myself a little more flexibility to explore, flexibility to try new things, I would have perhaps discovered that entrepreneurship and more strategic like business type of things were what I was interested in, and also that I was really interested in building products in like software engineering and that type of thing. Um, I was very into art at the moment, and I was like not really exploring other opportunities at school or talking to other people beyond what I was interested in. And so if I were in 10th grade, which is pretty early on in the college application process, I would definitely have given myself more room to explore and to take risk and to just find out really what I really liked versus what I didn't. Because in 10th grade, I was like 16. That's pretty young. You have a lot of time to figure things out and to figure out what you want to do.
Great. So, do you have any extracurriculars that you would recommend for high schoolers to take if they're interested in art or coding?
In art or coding, extracurriculars. Well, I think this comes pretty naturally, right? If you're interested in art, do art things. Um, there's a lot of different art things that you can do. There's like, I guess if you want like the college application, there's like art competitions and things like that. But also just producing art, I don't know, producing art, being like making the most with what you can do in terms of getting your art out there and published, and also different creative like outfits, the outlets for your outlets for your artwork. In terms of programming, coding, I think that's also, code more, program more, explore libraries, explore languages, explore different APIs, build things, create things. Maybe build a project, put it on Product Hunt, put it on GitHub, launch it. There's a lot of different options. Just it comes down to actually doing the thing that you're interested in.
Awesome. So, what do you think is your favorite part about Berkeley's MET program?
Yeah. I think my favorite part about the program, probably hands down, is the cohort, because it's about 50 people a year. So I come in to this gigantic school. Berkeley's like, I think 50,000 people, but the MET cohort in total across all 4 years is 200. So going in, I have this very tight knit group of friends and people who I know I can go to for like school help, just because we're all taking the same classes basically. And also just people who I am friends with and friendly with and can get along with. And it's helpful to have that community going into such a big school, and just people to reach out to if I have questions. So
Definitely, that sounds very fun. So, Solani asked, what steps can people take to succeed in computer science classes in a competitive environment?
yeah, good question. I think it also comes down to finding your people and finding a group of friends who you can do computer science assignments with and do projects together with, or alternatively showing up to office hours, showing up to like discussion and sections and things like that to get additional help and support. I think doing computer science by yourself, trying to debug something that you can't figure it out for the life of you, is a sad and lonely process. And you should have people, find people if you can, who will support you through that process. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm honestly trying to figure that out too. Berkeley is, I guess this answers her next question too. Berkeley is sometimes known as being hyper competitive, especially within STEM, within computer science. But I think as long as you, like, it really isn't that bad once you're actually here, because you're going to find people and support groups and systems that are in place to make sure that you can survive and do your best work through it. Because the engineering department is so big within Berkeley, there are very well worn, or there are a lot of support systems and structures and policies in place to make sure everyone is doing their best and is surviving and being okay. So I know it sounds scary sometimes about like the Berkeley STEM and computer science ecosystem, but I think genuinely once you're here and you find your people, you'll be 100% okay.
Awesome. So if anyone has any more questions for Kristie, feel free to write them in the Zoom chat. All right, so Solani asks, how has online school been?
How has online school been? Man, how has online school been for you guys? Because it's been different for sure, just in terms of the lectures all online. Okay, I guess it's been good for me. Yeah, actually, yeah, I think I'd say for me, I've enjoyed online school. I know I'm definitely missing like the in-person aspect and I'm missing like people, but I really enjoy the flexibility. I really enjoy being able to dictate what I do with my own time, to watch lecture on 2 times speed, and not have to kind of commute between classes. So it saves me a lot of time, saves me energy and think space for other things, um, which gives me the ability to block out times in my day for other things like um, things at school. So.
All right, so Ramesa asks, how much do you think having leadership positions in clubs matters in the college application process? And oftentimes the most extroverted students get them, so she's afraid that that puts her at a disadvantage.
Okay, so I think normally I would say that leadership positions matter because they suggest that you're able to pretty much not, you're able to make decisions and execute on decisions, and you're able to work with a team of people and to convince enough people of your vision and of your the reason why you're making your decisions to make something happen, which is pretty important when it comes to just I think life in terms of like leadership ability and things like that. That being said, I don't think you necessarily need to be per se like a very extroverted, like outgoing, like very extroverted person. I think if you're as long as you're able to execute upon an idea and to get people excited about your idea and get people to work on the same vision and idea that you have, I don't think it necessarily matters if like you're a super extroverted person or not. It may help just because your ideas may like you may be able to like spread and communicate your ideas more effectively. But I think there are definitely ways around that too. But yeah, too long didn't read. Like I think leadership is pretty important, not only in like high school or college or like for any application, but just as a general life skill.
So do you have any tips on how someone can gain leadership in clubs or different activities that they're involved in?
Yeah, I think it depends on the structure of the club or the structure of the organization. If it's a very like strict, stiff, like hierarchy in terms of leadership positions, I guess people like get elected or whatever it is that they do. But I think on a broader level, there's a lot that you can do, even just as a member, in terms of like speaking up and in terms of taking on more than what you're assigned and like or what your like typical workload is, and kind of demonstrating to the decision makers and the people around you that you're able to take on more and that you're organized and you're reliant or you're reliable and you're qualified and in a good position to be able to take a higher position of power within the organization. And it comes to like proving it, you know, even if you're not like you can definitely like prove it even if you don't that position at that moment, if that makes sense. Like yeah, like I think like even if you're not in leadership position, you definitely can like go above and beyond with what you're currently doing to prove to the people around you that you deserve to be in that leadership position. And even if you don't have that title, not having a title, but still like being a leader and like executing on your ideas and speaking up for your ideas and like communicating your ideas is it's also very impactful.
Awesome, I totally agree with that. So if anyone has any last questions for Kristie, feel free to write them in the Zoom chat. So how did you become interested in blockchain?
Fun question. Yeah, so I think this also goes back to my answer to like the 10th grade, like what would I do if I like, what would I tell my 10th grade self? And like my answer was to like, explore and to try new things. And I think like, if it wasn't for me first semester freshman year in college, kind of just being like, okay, I don't know really what I want to do, but I'm going to talk to as many people as possible and just explore new things, I don't think I'd be kind of where I am right now. So in terms of like, how did I become interested in blockchain? I got to Berkeley and I was like, okay, I just want to meet people. I want to meet cool people doing cool things. And it didn't really matter to me like what they were doing. But I basically like got down and I sat down and like I reached out to a bunch of people within my school who I thought were just doing cool things, and I want to talk to them, just to meet people, get settled into a new campus, and just know people across campus. And I ended up chatting with a girl named Meta. She just graduated from Berkeley last year. And she was an alumni from the Blockchain at Berkeley club on campus. She founded UC6, which is the organization I'm a part of now. And I've been following UC6 for a couple years in high school too. So I just wanted to kind of get to know her and just to find out a little bit more about what she was doing. And she converted me basically. Like she like really just convinced me why she thought or like convinced me of her vision for crypto, for decentralized finance, for blockchain. And I was like, okay, like I might as well, like I'm a big advocate of diversity in tech. And so UC6 was aligned with my mission. And it was an opportunity for me to explore a new topic and a new technology. And even if I decided I didn't like blockchain, I think having the experience and meeting the people who are early adopter types, who are the types to like start new things and explore new things, were people I wanted to meet anyway. So I kind of just went with it. I was like, okay, let me join UC6 and just as a side thing, like as like a extracurricular. And I ended up really enjoying the people that I met, really learning a lot from the other team members and on the team. Diving into crypto Twitter, diving into decentralized finance and the whole realm of crypto. And it's kind of just been a rabbit hole ever since, where I've kind of been like, okay, I know I want to do blockchain now. And then ended up, yeah, just kind of like really going into the rabbit hole and researching it at Pantera, currently recruiting for blockchain opportunities for next summer. So yeah, it all came down to just exploring and trying new things.
Awesome. So Melinda asks, do you think high schoolers need internships to appeal to admissions officers?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends on, okay, my short answer is no. My longer answer is it depends on how, or I guess like the impact of what you're doing at a internship company and why you want to intern for a company. Let me see. Give me a second. Let me think. I feel like the core of that question is still kind of the same question around like, what should I do to get into college, or like what should I do to get to appeal to admissions officers, right? But like again, there's no like one right answer for that. And I think it comes down to, if you are interested, like really interested in marketing or public policy or computer science or whatever it is that you're interested in, and you want to, like, your genuine interest is not to appeal to an admissions officer, but your genuine interest is that you want to spend whatever time period it is exploring this topic, then absolutely go for it. Absolutely reach out to small businesses around you, cold email people on the internet to find these opportunities, just so that you personally get an experience. You get to like spend time doing the thing that you want to do, and exploring kind of that discipline that you're interested in. 100% go for it. But I wouldn't do it because like you think that this thing will appeal to an admissions officer or college apps. Because I think at the end of the day, it comes down to like, are you genuinely interested in this topic, and are you genuinely like passionate about what you want to do? I think that shines through in your application. So
Great. So Melinda also asks, what do you think makes UC Berkeley more unique than others?
Yeah, I think for me, I said this earlier, but the one thing that stood out to me about Berkeley that to me no other school had was the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the proximity to the SF Bay area, the network of people for me, in tech and startup in VC, that I thought would be really beneficial to my career and to just my personal interests, and to meet people who aligned with what I was interested in. That for me was like the number one decider. But also, I couldn't give up Californian weather. For me, something like maybe that seems like a small thing, but you're going to be living at like on campus for 4 years, and so for me, that was important. That was a pretty important decision maker for me. Political climate, and the engineering department at Berkeley is really strong, so I knew I'd get a good education, and the business department is also really strong, so I knew I'd get a good education there. Um, yeah, and I think that's why Berkeley stood out to me as opposed to like the other Ivy Leagues or the other colleges that I was maybe considering. So
For sure. So Alexa asks, how do you know that you're truly interested in specific opportunities like internships if you've never had the experience?
yeah, good question. I think it's less so of the focus on like I'm interested in interning, as opposed to like I'm interested in say public policy, and I would like to test if I like this interest in public policy by interning. Like, you see how like the thought process there is, like the reasoning for why you want the internship is a little bit different. One is like I want the internship for the sake of an internship, and the other is like I want an internship to explore a particular discipline. If that answered your question.
Awesome. So Solani asks, what's the MET interview like?
Was there an MET interview? Oh yeah, there was an MET interview. I don't think it was any different from my other college interviews. It was also very behavioral. It was like, why the school, like a bunch of behavioral leadership questions, just to judge if you were like a good culture fit for the vision of the program. It wasn't anything like super special. It's kind of just like all your other college interviews.
All right, so if nobody has more questions, I guess, Kristie, what is one thing that you want students to take away who are going through the application process right now?
Yeah, I know it's stressful. I was there, and all my friends were there, and it's very stressful, like while you're in it. And sometimes it feels like if you don't do anything, if you don't do something right, then you won't get into college, and it's like a big like stress factor. But like for everyone I know, things have worked out. Like literally every single person that I know, like things work out at the very end. Um, like I remember getting rejected from a bunch of schools that like I really wanted to get in. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna get into college. But you really only need to get into one to get into college. And the process will work out. I promise, like I literally like pinky promise you it will work out. You just have to trust the process. And even if you don't get into any of the colleges that you want to, one of my very best friends is going to community college right now. And at first she was like, you know, devastated obviously, but like for her, like right now, like she's very happy figuring herself out and kind of ramping up for her second round of applications to transfer into a UC. And so like there are definitely like a lot of different paths for everyone, and life is long. There are a lot of opportunities for you to do what you want to do, and you don't need to get it all completely right now. And your goals will change, and your path will change. And as long as like you're happy, like, and as long as like you are like not completely stressing yourself out over everything, things will work out. And I will promise you that things will work out. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristie. So I'm going to end this call now, but the recording will be up on our YouTube for you guys to watch if you want to later. And thank you all for coming. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.